Hi everyone, it's Natalie here. Welcome to my channel, and welcome to the weekly general reading. So I've got a lovely lavender candle burning for us here with my little buckeyes. I don't know why I have these other than just I love them. And they dried out so nicely, so they've kind of stayed with me on my desk all winter. So yeah, that's going over here. And I think this week I am feeling drawn back to the Spacious Tarot again. We have a new moon in Pisces, and I feel like opening space for the new moon is a positive thing. It's a really beautiful warm day here today in St. Louis, and I've got windows open, and I've been doing a lot of cleaning, and it just feels good. So that's where we are with this. I also would like to use the Spirit Doodle cards. I am finding this deck to hold all of the depth and sensitivity and empathy and ability to kind of put me back on track that I had hoped it would have. So if you're not familiar with the Spirit Doodle cards, this could be a nice introduction for you. If you are, then you know. I have used them a couple of times in recent weeks, but I think we'll start here by just drawing a Spirit Doodle card for the week. Okay, so the card that just came flying out is Decide. Okay, number 20, and it's associated with the element of air. So interesting, makes me wonder where we're going to find our card this week, in which pile. But yeah, Decide. So let's see what's in the book around this particular card. Okay, so in this, obviously reading all of the description is not something that's very practical because there are 4 pages of it, right, for each card, which is partly why I love the depth of this deck. So Elrond talks a lot in the description about what tends to come up around making decisions. And he also talks very much in here about when we're making decisions, like visualizing the outcome on one side and visualizing the outcome on the other side, right, of the decisions we make. And he also talks in here a little bit about decision-making fatigue. We have so many decisions we're having to make on a regular basis, right? And sometimes, if we're people who have to make a lot of high stakes decisions, trying to make decisions about little things becomes really exhausting. So his major point in this card is that we need to prioritize because not all decisions are the same or require an equal level of involvement. Some might be easier because the outcome seems inevitable. I'm reading this directly, by the way. While others will be more difficult and might require intense focus and willpower. Regardless, all decisions must be made with the very best intentions and never from fear. In the end, we must have faith that whatever we choose will have value. When this card comes up, ask yourself, how important is the decision you are being asked to make? If the answer is very important, then go through a pro and con list. Imagine yourself living with each of the options and choose what will make you the happiest. Don't be afraid of disappointing others with your choice. You are not responsible for them. Choose out of love and not out of fear. Very, very beautiful lesson there. Really beautiful. So it looks like we're dealing with a lot of decisions that may be coming up this week. Something I did want to throw in there, he includes in here, an emotion when you get the card, and then an emotion to develop, right? Which I have found to be incredibly helpful. The emotion when you get the card is feeling pulled in opposite directions or torn. And then the emotion to develop is commitment, determination, and faith. Okay. So another really excellent Spirit Doodle card for the week. I know I've been using them a lot, but it's because they're so good. They really are amazingly good deck of cards with a lot of depth. And that really is, I think, reflective, too, of Elrond's own spiritual practice, without which they would not hold as much depth. Okay, so here we have the Spacious Tarot. Oh, I haven't even addressed Manifesting Your Greatness, which is right here. So we'll pull a Manifesting Your Greatness card just to end the reading this week, which kind of feels to me like we may need to do that. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and pull out our cards. I did edge the deck since we last saw each other. It's not, you can't really see it that well, but it's a really lovely pink that's kind of got the same pinks that are, it's one of the lighter pinks that's here in this Fool card that really goes with the little bits of pink that are in the back and so on. Okay, so here's our Fool about ready to go off the edge here. And we'll shuffle it back into the deck. So we must be back in Pentacles again. Yep. All right, so we're back in the Pentacles again this week, which means that the decision-making that we have will be around finances, money, health, well-being, physical things, physical objects, our home, our stuff, perhaps some purchases that we might want to make, etc. Okay, so, oh, and when this card, you know, when our significator shows up in the Pentacles pile, we best solve our problems through being. So through stillness, through occupying the space of our bodies, and also through sensing. So the 5 senses and how those impact us. For those out there who are into MBTI or Myers-Briggs, that would be what's known as extroverted sensing. So anything that puts us back in our physical bodies, in our physical senses, and ultimately brings us back to a place of stillness, right? The Pentacles tend to be slow moving. So that also means that we may have more time than what we think to make these decisions, even though they may feel really urgent to us. All right, so let's lay out our cards. Jennifer Ball, who I know is watching right now, because she always is, made it clear to me in our last video, and I'm sorry I haven't responded yet, Jennifer, but I did see the comment that I've been doing it wrong. When in a general reading, when you get back to your significator as one of the cards, it stops there. So you don't take in any more cards at that point. So we will keep that in mind this week. Actually, I was feeling it going the other way. I think we will go this way. And I thought, but I used my left hand, but this is how I feel it going. So, all right. Okay, so now that we've got these all laid out, and of course I just took my little Instagram photo for later, so that's why my candle's in the middle there. Although it's kind of pretty, why don't we just leave it? Okay, there we go. Ta-da! All right, so the Fool is where we're starting, and we're going clockwise this week. So 1, 2, 3. Our first, wow. Okay, our first one is the Eight of Cups. That's interesting. So that decision's coming hard and fast, hey? Let's see, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we've got the Guardian or the Queen of Pentacles. And that one is worth 4, or no, yes, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. So 7 of Wands is next. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, the Moon. Okay, and that's planetary. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Nice. Explorer of Pentacles. I'm just going to double check that the Explorer is not, I get, with, okay, Elder is King, Guardian's Queen. Okay, Explorer is Knight, so, because, yeah, Child is, got it. All right. So Explorer of Pentacles is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Explorer of Cups. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 more cups. 5 of Cups. Wow. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 of Swords. Big reading this week, guys. Let's see. 6 of Swords. That's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4 of Swords. Okay, lots of mind here. Lots of this mind and decision-making energy being reflected here in the cards coming up, hey? Okay, so 4 of Swords. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, beautiful. The Hermit. I've been wanting that card to come up for so long because it's just so pretty. That's not a good reason for it to come up, though, is it? Okay, the Hermit. But I sense it, you know, that we'll see it. It comes together. All right, so 4 of Swords, Hermit. Let's see. That's going to be a Zodiac. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Boy, we are pulling them out here. Explorer of Wands. A lot of night energy and movement here this week. Okay. A lot of cards, y'all. A lot of cards. All right. Explorer of Wands. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank God. Okay. Explorer of Wands is our last card. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cards this week. Wow, that's pretty awesome. That's a lot. All right. I feel pretty safe about them this week. I'm going to go ahead and double check though, just because I'm like that. All right, I'll be right back. So it looks like I really screwed it up this week. This is why I always double check my cards. Times when I'm like, well, I don't know if I got it. I had it fine, and then other weeks or other times, you know, when I'm doing these spreads and I think, oh yes, I feel like it's perfectly fine. I find that I've got something wrong. And that does happen, especially when I'm recording these or reading out of here and in the public, because there are always distractions around. Unfortunately, when I sit down to read cards frequently for videos like this, my phone blows up. And so all of those notifications pop up, you know, to either side of my screen and da-da-da. So it actually would have stopped after the Six of Swords. Had I included counting the moon, we would have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we would have stopped here at the Fool. So that would make the Six of Swords the last card of the reading. Or it would make the Fool the last card of the reading. But I'm actually having difficulty finding that information. I've got a couple of different books that have that information, including Holistic Tarot and the Book of Thoth, but I can't seem to locate that specific information. I just spent about the last 15 or 20 minutes double checking that info. I'm going to stop and leave. It doesn't somehow feel right to me that the significator ends up being the final card of the reading. I just don't know. But it did come up as the last card. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the Fool in. But that means that we then stop with the Fool and we have 9 cards. So we're losing the Four of Swords, we're losing the Hermit, and we're losing the Explorer of Wands. Yeah, so it'll be clearer once I lay them out. I'll go ahead and collect them and we'll put them out. Okay, so I think we've got this dealt with here. I actually ended up having to call or text Jennifer directly to make sure. Because even when I looked it up, I looked up Crowley's version of it in the back of Book of Thoth. I pulled out Benabel's version of it in Holistic Tarot, and I was struggling to really make sense of some of that information. You know, when you're trying to do it quickly and your brain is already just kind of befuddled, it can be a lot. And they both explain it so differently. So I ended up having to text Jennifer, and she referred me literally to the direct sentence where it's clarified. So it is clear to me that we definitely keep the Fool here, which makes for a really interesting reading, and 9 cards feels right. You know, it really does. So as we look at what's coming across here for our week, I'm just going to turn the laptop this way. So that we can start with the Eight of Cups. So it looks like the decision that we are engaging in this week is going to require a possible needing to walk away from something, you know, or let something go in order to take a different path. So the decision that we're dealing with probably has a lot of emotions related to it, potentially a lot of heaviness to it. Certainly that, you know, this Five of Cups over here on the edge tells us that that's the case. But that's a challenging decision to need to make, especially if it may impact your health. If it may be something that impacts your finances, that can be very hard to do. It's, you know, this is an emotional decision, you know, whatever the case may be. A lot of decisions are, but this one seems to be one that, praise is not the right word. I was going to say something that preys on your emotions, but rather, let's say, gets us more emotionally activated and involved in making the decision rather than the mind, right? So again, it's interesting to me too then that our next card is the Guardian of Pentacles, which is ultimately the Queen of Pentacles. And there is this beautiful bear sitting quietly, holding space all around it, right? So as we look at how do we make this decision, it's not one we want to make that, you know, in a way that's rash. We want to definitely sit with that decision, create space around it, space for it. Yeah. In being able to move forward, sometimes we have to stop. We can't just get up and walk away, even if, you know, making a rash decision just to get it over with might feel better in the short term. You know, sometimes we do have to give it that space and engage in what the longer term possibility is. So that reminds me here of our, you know, decide card from Elrond, you know, and he says very clearly in this one that sometimes you really do, you know, have to take time around a decision and, you know, visualize seeing yourself in various different outcomes before you can make it, right? Making this decision is definitely something. I'm just putting my cards back here and trying to keep my necklaces from bouncing on the laptop too much. This may be a decision that leaves us feeling kind of defensive and uncertain. I also see this particular Seven of Wands as requiring us to take the high road. That it, with this extra wand up here sort of floating across the top gives me the sense of transcending. So we've got these wands here, which are bright red, noisy, urgent, do something, be something, create something. And sometimes you have to lift above that space in order to really know what's happening. So as we look at this situation, knowing that this decision might require us to desert something, to leave something, to walk away from something, to start something new, we want to offer it lots and lots of space to sit and be with the outcome of that decision, and to as we're doing that, really kind of transcend this space a little bit. I see these wands. This is a very, very like RWS based interpretation here, but where we see these wands and possible conflict coming up against, the guy that's standing up on top trying to battle it off. This could potentially represent lots of the opinions, of other people in our lives, the way they might react, right? All of that fire and the stuff right there, that's maybe the reactions that we anticipate around making these decisions. We can't control what other people think. That's something really important to consider as we go into the week. What other people think and how they feel about the decisions that we have to make is not a good reason to make a decision. So transcending that in a place that is quiet and kind of rises above all of the noise is really necessary, okay? As we engage this process too, let's just shift center here. As we engage this process, we've got the moon here. So in this quiet space it's interesting, the wand is the same color kind of as the moon, where we're transcending all of this noise. Here we are with the moon. And with a lot of our own thoughts and our own feelings, the more we get space and hold space for something different, the more it is going to tap into the subconscious. It is going to go deep. It is going to draw, it's going to draw things out of the body, by which I mean really emotions, sensations, things that give us clues, that give us information about what we need to do to move forward, right? So allowing our subconscious mind, and in many cases for a lot of us, that's the body, right? And we are in the Pentacles pile this week, so that does lead me toward that interpretation here more than usual. Listening to the body. What kind of intuition or wisdom does the body offer us around this decision? And I think that has to include allowing space for your own reactions and responses to things. What are the fears that come up? Again, Elrond mentions in his description for the decision card, making a decision from fear is unhelpful. It's unhelpful. It tends to result in poor decision making, and a sense that maybe we're not, we're doing something out of this kind of possible fearful defensiveness. I'm worried about what everybody might think of me or what the reactions will be, rather than the truth, right, of our experience and the kind of truth that our experience will bring to the surface for us to, engage and be a part of. So, looking at it, what does your body tell you? When you think about making that decision, or you sit, as we have here with our guardian of Pentacles, as you sit with that decision, how do you feel? What is your body giving you? What is your unconscious giving you? And additionally, like, what emotions does it bring up, right? What kinds of things does it bring to the surface, about, different, oh, how do I put it? The things that influence our decisions sometimes come from fear, um, fear of rejection, fear of being judged, fear of what if I do the wrong thing? Um, that's legitimate. So could we maybe find a way to be with that emotion, separate it from the decision making, and tend to it first before trying to proceed further, right? And as we proceed further, which we have here with the Explorer of Wands, we can actually, I think the parity between I'm standing over my computer. I hope I'm audible here. But yeah, the parity, I'm going to sit. Here we go. Between, this Eight of Cups where we're contemplating, right? There's nobody actually moving. It's the suggestion that there's movement that takes us away from something, versus this Explorer of Pentacles where we have a similar landscape during the daylight, right? So a clearer view of what's going on and the possibility to move forward with care, right? And interestingly, this Explorer of Pentacles could go, straight. They could go, to their left and up over those mountains, kind of like we have suggested here in the Eight. Or they could come out this way towards us. But any way they choose to go, it's with greater insight. It's in the light of day. Interestingly, too, this moon, right? We've got the moon here in this card, all of the darkness. So I feel like, too, the decision making at the beginning of the week, or the recognition of the decision making, we won't be able to move forward or do anything about it that's constructive until we understand the fullness, of what's behind it for us, what it means for us to do this thing, and what it's going to bring up, right? There's a lot in here, guys. So much in here. So moving forward with this Explorer of Pentacles means being able to take baby steps slowly, gently, and with a greater sense of what is informing the decision making. Okay. It will also ask us then too, this would be from a more practical sense, right? It's also going to ask us to revisit our emotions again. We've got the moon on one side, right? And we've got the Explorer of Cups on the other. So the moon kind of brings things to fruition, or not to the surface, and lets us know in our bodies what's happening and why we feel a particular way. That allows us to begin taking steps in terms of exploring. I love that this is the Explorer of Pentacles. We have our eyes wide open. There's light. We have the ability to see better what we're doing and what kind of impact it will have. And remembering too, it's Pentacles. So we will be looking, at that point, what are the practical aspects of this? How will this impact my body? How will this impact my money? How will this impact my income? How will this impact my ability to pay bills or, keep things on track financially, right? Additionally, we're also going to have to continue, again, that deep dive, right? So the Explorer of Cups has got to go down to the bottom of the body of water and really look at what's there, what's there. I love that this, we're in Pisces right now, right? And this is a Pisces new moon. So I love that we have this beautiful little fish that's like, okay, let's go down there and see what's happening. What emotions are going to come up for us, right? And that's a good question, because the Five of Cups is what happens next. So this is an important step in our week, guys. A very, very, very important step. Being able to explore those emotions and be with them, as we see with this Explorer of Cups, is really going to help us differentiate and better understand what the emotions are that may be influencing us. You know, we've got the Five of Cups here. So I also feel like, you know, a lot of the emotions may not be just fear. They may also be grief. It's interesting to me, always interesting to me, the ways in which grief prevents us from feeling able to move forward or be decisive about things. It can be so difficult. Melissa Sanova calls the Five of Cups the maybe life card, by which I mean, you know, some of us, or what by which she means actually, some of us have a tendency to think in our heads, you know, I've got this one little idea about my life over here in the corner that may include like that one thing you always thought maybe you'd go and do. It may include that one person you thought maybe, you know, if circumstances were right, they'd come back into the picture someday. You know, whatever that maybe is, that's kind of the pie in the sky thing, that sort of little like thing that we maybe derive hope from, right, in our lives, but which has no real grounding or basis in reality. When we see that thing somehow shattered, right, and removed as a possibility for whatever reason, when I was in a class that she did, like a beginner tarot class. I love beginner classes of all kinds because you learn something new about perspectives that you never took into account before. And she was talking about how she had a client who had the Five of Cups come up, and it was coming up around a former partner, a former love that she'd had maybe early in her 20s. And that person, she found out that person had gotten married. And not only had they gotten married, they had a child, and they had this beautiful life and so forth that was completely separate from hers. And it had made her look at her own personal situation as, even though she was happily married, even though she was, you know, very committed to her partner and so on, there was some part of her that was still hung up on the other side of the shore with this old love. And having to grieve that would never happen, that was not part of her life, that was not really what was happening, meant that she could then be free to be fully there, you know, on the other shore with her current partner. So, you know, the maybe life stuff also sometimes includes goals. You know, it can sometimes include, I'm just trying to think. I mean, so many of our, you know, and so many of our maybe life choices are things that we have seen shattered. This is where grief comes in. We've had those things shattered and over with, but we can't fully grieve and let go, right? We haven't fully accepted that those cups are broken. They no longer hold the potential for that particular maybe life thing. And that actually what prevents us perhaps from making this decision, you know, coming up, is the hope that maybe life might not really be as dead or broken or gone as what we'd hoped, right? Maybe it's not really that shattered, or the inability to fully grieve it, like that, the pain of it, and the anger, the resentment, the frustration, etc. around that may be something that just has to be dealt with before it's possible to move on to the next thing. So, you know, it's important, I think, for us as we dive down this week and really get a closer look at what's being brought up by the moon, that this kind of dynamic is looked at. You know, this may be very much a part of what we're encountering with and what we're dealing with. Okay. Not easy stuff. I don't know. My readings are not light and friendly. Even when I use light friendly decks, they seem to always come out as like, okay, here's this big thing that's a big theme in your life. Okay, so moving on, you know, I love this, right? We go from a 5 to a 6. So dealing with and looking at, just being with it, right? Not even necessarily doing anything about it just yet, all right? Going down deep, looking at that scenario, and then, you know, being with it is going to give us enough to be able to see the light come cracking through. There's no light here, right? The light's been left up at the top there, but here it comes cracking through. And the 6 of Swords, we know, you know, from RWS is usually this, you know, the boat ferrying, you know, someone to a higher ground or to a better place. When the sun starts to part the clouds and come out, we know there too that's also going to happen. But I think what's interesting about these swords and the way they arrange, right, is if this represents the mind and the state of mind, having dealt with our 5 of Cups, brings the mind into closer contact. You know, under the snow, the points of these swords, you know, as they angle down and angle in, they're angled fairly close together. So if we're hoping to bring a monkey mind or a mind that's got full of thoughts, full of ideas, back into focus, this to me says, okay, the mind is coming back together, coming back to focus. And as that begins to take place, we're going to be able to see what happens next. You know, what is the next thing to do? And then from that place, you know, we're fully able to make that decision. Yeah. And that's why the Fool had to be there to wrap up this reading, you know. So I hope that makes sense. I feel like that's come together relatively okay and smoothly, because I keep weaving the cards back together, back together, back together all the way through to the end. Yeah. So I feel like with that said, you know, that's kind of deep. I wonder if the Manifesting Your Greatness Oracle can give us a little something that's uplifting, kind, gentle. You know, this little critter here is such a kind, sweet little being. And I mean, look at that. You know, this has to be good. So I'm going to have a shuffle over here and I'll come back with a card. Okay, so 2 cards jumped out and they're rather marvelous. Okay. So the first one, use your words. That is so interesting to me. So swords are what I associate with words. So perhaps what we need by the time we get to this single pointed focus is, or not single pointed, but, you know, a more focused clarity around what it is that we're doing. It might help us to clarify further before we actually take those steps forward, to find a way to articulate it in language. You know, use your words. Find the way to say what it is you need. Find the way to say what it is you want. You know, and it may also be possible that as we're dealing with the 5 of Cups, finding a way to verbally articulate the emotions behind what's happening here can sometimes also help us move to that place of greater clarity. You know, and actually as I look at the whole spread, using your words, what is it that you feel you need to walk away from? Can you articulate it? Can you put it into language? And then the second one we have here is so lovely. It says, find a little divinity in yourself. Right? So inside this dude, there's an angel. Look at that. Yeah. So where, what I feel like finding that divinity in yourself could be something really helpful in this moment with the Guardian of Pentacles, where we're sitting and being with the weight of this decision. We can really trust ourselves. We really can. We have tremendous wisdom. We are divine beings and divine creatures. We have that potential within us. It's just a matter of calling it forth and allowing it to be the guiding force, the guiding direction that helps us make those decisions and move forward. And we'll need that divinity to help us transcend all of this, right? Yeah. Beautiful. All right, folks. So there we have it. That is our messy little reading for the week. Isn't life beautiful? Yeah, I'd love to hear from any and all of you about how this all goes for you, what comes up, what ways in which this is all manifested. I'm hoping this week to have more time to actually get in and answer comments with more regularity. So we'll see how that goes. My end-of-life clients who have kind of taken over most of what I do at the moment are going to be away for 2 weeks. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. There may be some other things that are coming up with family members, but I'm hopeful that things will quiet themselves enough that rather than having to let comments and so forth on my videos go to the wayside, I'll actually be able to engage them with more regularity. So there we go. Thank you so much, everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye.